So today's lesson 5.5, thinking and problem solving. The objective is students will be able to identify problem solving strategies as well as factors that influence their effectiveness. So our focus is on problem solving strategies and factors that are going to influence how effective they are. So our first lesson, thinking and problem solving. We all have what we call concepts. Concepts are mental groupings of information. So we are grouping the information. A prototype is the best example of a concept. So for example, a concept may be superhero. A prototype might be the best example of a superhero. Now this can probably be argued, but in our house, the best example of a superhero would be Spider-Man. Get very excited about Spider-Man. Another example might be a concept would be a bird, right? And then which would be a better prototype? A penguin or a robin. People would probably say a robin because that's what they tend to think of when they think of a best example of a bird. So we may think robin versus penguin. So that's how we sort information. That's how we think about information. Now, what do we do when we try to solve a problem? And this goes beyond just math problems, but you can think of math when you think of this as well. When we have a problem, there's 3 ways that we tend to go about it. The first is an algorithm, step by step. So we think of, for example, if we have a combination, we may try every number to get it. A heuristic is going to be a thinking strategy that allows for quicker judgment. So it's thinking strategy, it allows it to be quicker. So you might try for that same combination, you may try like a birthday or anniversary. And then the third way of problem solving is an insight or an aha moment. You just get it. Now, pros and cons for algorithm. A pro is that you usually get the right answer. But the con is that it will take a while. Heuristics. A pro is that it is faster, but the con is you may not get the right answer. Okay, so creativity. What we want to make sure everybody knows about creativity is that creativity does not mean intelligence. Now, you can be intelligent and creative, or you can be creative and maybe not as intelligent. It does not necessarily mean that there's more intelligence the more creative you are. Creativity means that you're producing ideas that are novel and valuable. When we think about creativity, we think about divergent thinking. This is the type of thinking. Convergent thinking are people that are a little bit better at IQ type tests. Researcher Sternberg came up with 5 components of creativity: expertise, imaginative thinking skills, a venturesome personality, intrinsic motivation, and a creative environment. So are you an expert in that field? Can you imagine new things? Are you willing to take like a risks, right? Venturesome, like think adventure. Do you want to do this internally? So is there an internal want? And are you surrounded by things that inspire you? Problem solving. So how do we take all these ideas and use that information to solve problems? Well, these are two issues that we run into with problem solving. The first is going to be confirmation bias. We seek evidence verifying our ideas more eagerly than we seek evidence against them. So we want to verify rather than go against. So this might be, let's say you want to go do something and people tell you no. You may ask multiple friends till someone agrees with you and then that you agree with that friend. Another issue is going to be fixation, the inability to see a problem from a fresh perspective. So it's hard to see something new and fresh. One example of this would be mental set. And this might be the idea that we are predisposed on what has worked in the past. Sorry, I should say the past. Okay. And then functional fixedness is this idea that we can only use things for what they're meant to be used for. Now, two prime examples is how can you take these matchsticks, so we have 6 matchsticks, and turn them into 4 equal triangles. Oh, I'm running out of space, sorry team. 4 equal triangles. So can you do that? Can you figure out how to do that? And then the other one is, can you take these items down here, the thumbtacks, the candle, and the matches, and turn this into a candle holder? And I'm going to give you a minute to figure that out, because when I move on to the next slide, I'm going to give you the answers. So take a minute, pause, see if you can't figure out how to do that. And then here you go. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4 equal triangles. And then to take this and turn it into a candle holder, you can take the matchsticks, put them through, or the thumbtacks through the box, put it on a bulletin board, and then you have your candle holder. Okay, making decisions and forming judgments. The first way we make decisions and form judgments is by a heuristic, a mental shortcut. The first type of heuristic is what we call a representative heuristic. The likelihood of things based on how well they represent a particular prototype. Remember, prototype is best example. So if I were to tell you that there is a man who is short and slim and he likes to read poetry, do you think they are a professor of classics at an Ivy League university or a truck driver? Most people are going to come off and say probably a professor at an Ivy League university. But if we think about that, there's probably only 40 professors at an Ivy League university out of all the Ivy League universities that teach classics. Out of that 40, what's the likelihood that they are short and slim? Let's say maybe 10%. So that gives us 4. Versus truck drivers. We probably have 400,000 truck drivers in this country. If we take 10% of 400,000 truck drivers, that might be short and slim. That might break us down to 4,000. And out of those, how many like poetry? The idea being there's probably more truck drivers out there that are short, slim, and like poetry than there necessarily are short, slim, lovers of poetry that are Ivy League classic professors. So, but it's all based on the representative heuristic, the idea that that fits into our prototype, right? The second type is the availability heuristic, how mentally available the information is. Well, if we take a look at this chart off here to the right, this is a perfect example. Realistically, more people are going to die in auto accidents in this country in one given year versus terrorist attacks. But when people think about fear and what we spend more time teaching our children, think about what we make them go through, we spend way more time on the terrorist attacks, or people are way more fearful of that because of the auto accidents. Well, that's because the terrorist attacks are more mentally available. We see them on the news. They get flashed over and over again, more so than the auto accidents do. Overconfidence is a tendency to overestimate the accuracy of our knowledge and judgment. We overestimate ourselves all the time. We think about things like the fact that we look for people to agree with us, right? So when we do that, it builds up this overconfidence. And then the final part is belief perseverance. We keep our beliefs despite contradictory evidence. So even if we have evidence to prove us wrong, we still believe otherwise. You may want to think of our current commander-in-chief as a prime example of this. And finally, intuition and framing. Intuition is effortless, immediate, automatic feeling or thought. There is very little evidence or no evidence or conscious reasoning. And then framing, the way that we present an issue. There's 3 effects of framing, so the way that we present something. The first is preferred portion size. This is super interesting. So if you portion everything as small and then ask for a large, people are more likely going to go for small. Versus if you have a large and then ask for a small, people are more likely to go large. Organ donor, people are more likely to organ donate if it's automatic. So if you have to choose no rather than choose yes, you're more likely to become an organ donor. And there has been an increase in retirement, again, when it's automatic. And you have to opt out. So this is just some ways that people have used to framing as a way to kind of shift societal norms.